Maybe as a way of introduction, I ought to say a little bit about what NATO Watch is about, because it was only formed 3 years ago, and it's probably not as familiar to you as some of the other organisations that are represented at this table. We're an independent, not-for-profit, we describe ourselves as a virtual network of informed citizens, or NATO Watchers. And we're looking to monitor, with a kind of watchdog role, if you like. We try to monitor the role of NATO in public life. And we've been advocating for more openness, transparency and accountability within the Alliance. We currently have about just under 50 NATO Watch associates in around 25 countries. And our aim is to have at least one in every NATO member state, partner country and contact country. At these shadow NATO events, our aim is to explore ways in which civil society groups and parliamentarians within the Alliance can work together more effectively to advance NATO-related security policies and actions in line with what we describe as the shared democratic and humanitarian values that are at the heart of the member states. Our inaugural Shadow Summit took place during the 60th anniversary NATO Summit in March-April 2009. And our second coincided with the NATO Summit in Lisbon in November 2010. Both of those we held in Brussels. And this is, of course, do the maths, this is our third Shadow Summit. It's the first to be organised here in Washington. At the time of the 60th anniversary summit, we also decided to develop a parallel process to one that was going on within NATO at that time in the lead up to developing a new strategic concept. And it resulted in what we described as a Citizens' Declaration of Alliance Security, a copy of which you'll find at the back on the information table. It's this kind of purple document here. The declaration sought to undertake a more explicit questioning of the extent to which NATO is engaging with some of the fundamentals of its purpose in our present world and how it must fit into a wider security and conflict prevention architecture. When the new strategic concept was then later agreed at the Lisbon Summit, we again developed this document into a citizens' strategic concept, which was a much more detailed effort and expanded on some of the ideas within this document. You'll find a copy of that on the NATO Watch website. Our aim has always been with these documents to try and develop a living document and one that will be regularly updated and based on citizens' comments and to reflect changes both within NATO and within the international system. We will be further revising the text after this conference and based on the outcomes of the Chicago Summit itself. And we're anticipating developing, obviously depending on what some of the outcomes are, we're anticipating developing what we describe as a Citizens' Charter for NATO Reform, and I'll be happy to say a little bit more about that when I'm up on one of the panels later tomorrow. We expect to be able to launch that before the end of the year. Everybody participating in this conference will get a feedback form emailed to them at the end. In addition to letting us know what you think of this Shadow Summit itself, we'll also be inviting your views on this form and scope of our proposed Citizens' Charter. I really would ask that you do fill it in and return it to us because we're eager to know what you think about these issues. I think this is especially the case here in the United States because where support for NATO appears to be on the wane across the political spectrum. I think that, Republicans, Democrats, some of the mainstream media and think tanks are increasingly sceptical about what the Alliance contributes to US security and frequently points to the cost and unequal burden sharing with European allies. And these are some of the issues we'll be going into later on in our meeting. So, I very much look forward to 2 days of fruitful and passionate discussion on a whole range of NATO-related issues, and I welcome you to our meeting. And at that point, I think I would just pass the floor over to Ambassador Dobbins, who will be introducing the first of our panel, and I would like to invite our initial panellists to come up to that. Steve.
I sat here